see who can be, say something, Kathleen.
Good morning to you all. How's that?
Good morning. We can hear you.
Good morning.
I'm glad you can, because I've been in other calls and they say I get garbled or something, so I'm not sure.
To my ear, you're muted, but then I wasn't hearing Roma very well either, and everybody else was. So it's it is not equal for all of us.
Is this any better?
Can you hear Roma?
Roma? I can't hear Roma at all.
Oh, wow, it's worse. Can anybody else hear me?
Yes,
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
But I can't see you.
Oh,
Oh, that's weird.
where'd I go?
I can't see Roma.
Hi, Eric. Welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You're
And,
welcome.
and we're all going to be able to fit on this gallery screen, I think. And so that will be cool. We'll kind of leave everybody up. And so watch yourself.
We're recording now, just so everybody
You'll
knows.
be on TV. Except for Eric, who just disappeared. Okay.
May I do a sound?
Oh, and Ken Werner. Mr. Werner,
Mr. Werner.
welcome. Welcome. Okay, well, here we are at 10 o'clock. Let's go take a look at the agenda. I asked you all to print it out, but we're also going to bring it up like this to follow. That sort of dominates the screen. Is there a way that can be kind of undominant or?
Well,
You should have some view options. Many of you, I have view options that allow me to do kind of a split screen.
right. It depends on,
Side by side mode between it depends on your device.
yeah.
Okay, because I want to see everybody. And with the agenda up, I can only see 6.
Okay, that's your screen, because
on the
I can see
side,
everybody
yeah.
with the agenda.
Let's see.
But we can take the agenda down if you want.
Did you all do what I asked, please, and print your agenda so you
Yes,
can
ma'am.
glance at it?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's take the agenda down
Okay,
and see y'all instead.
how's that?
That looks good.
Oh,
Okay.
so much prettier.
Hey,
Some more than others. I actually put on lipstick today, which I don't ever do because
Oh, I did too. First time in a week.
there you go.
lipstick's gonna last a long time. Okay, I'm not gonna mess up your timing anymore. Let's start out with introductions. And before we do that though, I want to show you something. I got a gift for all the board members, and as soon as I see you live and in person, you'll each get one of these.
Oh, hi.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
yay!
Oh, cool.
Yay!
See, it's one of those kind of
Yeah,
pins.
that's great.
Okay, so that's for the
Oh,
board.
that's terrific.
And for the nominating committee, I probably will have to mail these to you since you won't be getting together with us. But this is for the nominating committee.
Ah,
Oh.
Ah!
Okay.
Oh.
And a couple of years from now, you can all have one of these to remind you that, you've got to get together and nominate a new board. Thank you. Okay. Let's
I
go
ordered
around
one of
the group, and everybody's
Okay.
got their names up. Great. If you will say your name, your local league, what city you're Zoom casting from, and what your Bay Area League portfolio is. And I think we can do that all in a minute or so a piece.
mhm.
Let's go around the gang here. Madeline, let's start with you.
Okay, I'm Madeline Cronenberg. I am Zoom casting from beautiful El Cerrito. I'm in the West Contra Costa County League, and I'm the VP, the admin VP for the Bay Area League.
Thank you, Leslie.
Okay, Leslie Stewart. My local league is the Diablo Valley League, which is the other half of Contra Costa County from the one that Madeline is in. I am Zoom casting from Concord, and my portfolio on the board is treasurer.
Oh, thank you. Mary Ann.
Mary Ann Benson, I am a member of the Piedmont League, and I was on the LWVBA board 10 years ago as secretary, so I am returning to that slot.
Indeed, and when we would meet at her house, we would go down to lunch afterwards at this fine Chinese restaurant that's called what? Marianne, the Chinese restaurant near your old house?
In my neighborhood?
Yeah, your former neighborhood, I think.
Well, no, I live in Rockridge now.
Yeah.
You
So you're
think-
not near that.
Becky's?
No, no. You used to live in Piedmont, I think.
I've been out of there 14 years, I'm telling you.
This is an ancient memory. Sorry. Okay, Alec.
Alec or Alex? Alex,
Yeah, let's do Alec with the C.
Alec McDonald, from Oakland, member of the Oakland League, editor of the Bay Area Monitor.
Yes, he sure is. The Alex with an X.
Okay. Fremont Newark Union City League. I am supposedly the transportation chair, and I am broadcasting from Sunol because we actually live outside the city limits. And so we're up on the hill, in the hills to the east of Mission Peak.
Great house. Kathleen.
Thanks.
Kathleen Shaw with the Oakland League, and I am coming to you from the foothills of East Oakland. My portfolio is regional planning, land use, that kind of issue. As a result, I sit on the Regional Planning Committee and represent the League of Women Voters Bay Area on those particular issues. I am also sitting on the climate change task force, not so much that, but the bigger, and I've been doing legislative analysis. And in particular, working with others, looking at, you have the climate change, you have all these other issues, but you have trying to get out of the silos. I'm bringing the land use and planning kind of perspective to the analysis and more. So that's kind of what I've been doing.
Great. Scott. Okay, Ann.
Oh, I'm Ann Draper. I was on the board for a while and thought that I'd be traveling like almost every day of this year. And so I said, gee, it's not fair to be on the board. And well, things changed. And I'm here. But I am serving as the chair of the nominating committee. And also I'm coming from Menlo Park, California, which is part of South San Mateo County League.
Thanks. Okay, Eric.
Yeah, hi, I'm Eric Ahrens, and I'm in Berkeley, California. I'm in the Berkeley Albany Emeryville League, and I am the chairperson of the climate action team here. Our main emphasis here is on electrification of houses, heat pumps, electrification of cars, of electric cars. And I'm brand new. I joined the league a year ago so I could help a little bit on this electrification matter. And I think we've just rolled along. And here I am, I'm a director now. And so anyway, I have a lot to learn.
Well, we'll teach you.
Are
doing a lot, I would think.
Roma.
I'm Roma Dawson from San Jose, Santa Clara. That's our official name, but we also include Milpitas and then all the way south out to San Martin. And my portfolio is housing. I also have a strong interest in climate change and hope to talk to Eric at some point about getting some of our committee engaged with him. At any rate, really excited about this board, about working with Kathleen. So thank you.
Thank you. Vida.
Good morning. My name is Vida Flores, and I'm from the Napa County League. I've been on the board since 2013, and I remember going to that restaurant near Mary Ann's house. Let's see, I'm the communications director, and I'm coming to you from Novato, California.
And look at that great publicity behind her. Wow.
Our annual meeting's coming up, so.
Great thing.
I'm ready.
Okay, and Mr. Werner.
Oh, hi, I got bumped off of Zoom, so I'm back now. I'm Ken Warner. I live in Alameda. I'm on the Alameda League board, and surprisingly was at I used to be on the Bay Area League and got a parole. And
interesting attitude.
And
for time served.
Yeah, not enough apparently. So now I'm on the nominating committee when Kate Quick sort of ambushed me in a moment.
That's aptly put, probably, knowing.
Yeah, very much so.
Indeed. Okay, well, that's the gallery here. I'm cudgeling my brain to see. Yeah, Mary Ann.
Madeline, is it possible to have all the names up as I'm taking the minutes? It will make it easier for me.
Okay, all the names are up except Ken Werner has got Mr. in front of his.
No, my screen has only the person who's speaking.
Oh.
Try clicking on participants.
Yes.
Where it says 12 participants.
Participants.
Just right
It
there.
might be at the bottom of your screen.
I see it, yes. Okay, magic. It worked.
Oh, wonderful.
And,
No,
and you need to know, Mary Ann, we're recording, this meeting is being recorded, right? And that means that the chat is also being recorded. So any questions or if people want to have something that gets recorded, it will be in chat, and chat becomes a text file that you can add to the minutes.
Okay, so
thank you.
To contribute to chat or to see what's in chat, you got to bring up chat.
Yep.
So if you'll click on that at the bottom of your screen, you'll see that right now there's not anything in it, but some things may appear as we go along. So rather than having, Kathleen is already approved. Look at that wonderful thumb up. There you go. So you can, express attitude on things. And rather than having to go through an electronic raise hands thing, if you'll just put your hand up, we're a small enough group that we can see that and recognize you. So, and for the moment, we're just going to leave all of the mutes unmuted. And so feel free to chime in here. You're all very league-like just by definition. So I think that'll work out just fine. Okay, well, remarkably enough, we are on time and we're only 15 minutes into the course. So thank you all. All right, what I'd like to do next is check to see your attitude about our board meetings and when they, and when they should be. I understand that you've been meeting monthly on second Mondays. And the next meeting then on the July calendar would be the 13th of this month. And so do y'all approve of meeting second Mondays and having our next meeting be on July 13th. If you'll just raise your hand. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. And is there any big opposition to that? Vita, you didn't have your hand up. Are you okay?
I didn't. I wanted to ask a question, see if we could move it to the third Monday. We often have meetings in the North Bay on the second Monday. So,
okay.
So if there's an opportunity for the third Monday, it'd be cool, but I can just accommodate if not.
Oh, does anybody have any problem with the third Monday? Could you raise your hand and just say if you're available on a third Monday? An I for third Monday? Okay, there's just a couple or three that can't make it
It's
on
half
the
rate.
third Monday. And so, Vita, could you accommodate?
I could work on the second. I could accommodate the second Monday, yes.
Well, we appreciate that flexibility, certainly. Thanks a lot. So we will continue. Let's get that on all of your calendars. If you have a Google Calendar, just say second Monday forever or something, and it will program. Now, the question is time. And in the past, meeting in person to accommodate a BART schedule, as I understand it, we were meeting at 10:45. For the foreseeable future, probably the next several months, we'll be doing this, Zooming. And in future, we may even decide that we prefer this distance kind of approach rather than having to, and we might consider something flexible like every other meeting would be in person or something, just so that we can hug one another and express other emotions in person. So we can deal with that when that would become a possible option later on. But for now, Zooming, what's your preference for time? You want to move back to, say, 10 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to move to 10.
Is 10? Nod. Okay. Raise hand. 10. Okay. All right. All right. Let's call it a 10 o'clock meeting, and it'll be on July 13th. And hooray for that. And thank you. We won't be doing any official polling and things like that of our votes. We'll just do the hand raise, since nothing we do in this retreat will need to be official. Oh, before we go on, I wanted to say that I just looked this morning at the East Bay Express online, and we have the news that former Supervisor Gail Steele has passed away.
Oh.
She died last Friday, apparently. And some of you remember Gail Steele. It says here that she was on the Board of Supervisors for 18 years. And so the league had a number of dealings with her. She was quite supportive. I think she was maybe a member down in the Hayward. Was she part of you, Alex?
No, but she came to visit us before all this crap happened, talking to us about a special issue of her interest. But I think she was a member of the Eden League.
Eden League, right. That would have been it. She was an unusual personality. Any of you who met her, she cried easily. She was, but you know, she had a big heart, and a lot of people really appreciated her role in the Board of Supervisors. So there we go, another generational thing.
You know, because I was with ABAG, and she had a very good voice on the board and was really made sure the equity issues were out there.
Equity issues, yeah. Early on,
other issues amongst others.
Yeah, she was an early supporter of all kinds of societal change issues and so forth. Yeah.
She was vocal, and she was really convinced in her opinions. It was fair. You couldn't change them, that's for sure.
She came with them.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on here. And we've got, I'm sorry, we've got Alec McDonald with us. Thank you, Alec. This is our Real Live Monitor editor. I think you've all had a chance to meet him. The Monitor would not survive without him. And he also does some staff work for us, for the Bay Area League, for which we're very grateful. And his mom is Ruby McDonald, who is the president of my league, Berkeley, Albany, Emeryville. And so talk about an involved family. Bob carries picket signs and goes to conventions and so forth. So there's, I'm sure that your son, Alec, will be coming along as a league member before too long. So, okay, Alec, let's have a discussion here about what's going on with the Monitor, which may be one of our ongoing challenges from month to month on our BAL agenda. But Alex, set the stage for us, if you would.
Sure. So I think, if you've been reading and following along the discussions, we've been in a sort of financial bind for a while. But ever since really I started, but which I hasten to say was the beginning of was 2007, the financial crisis. So that's partially why the budget has been sort of in a problem the entire time. But our most pressing recent issues were around MTC deciding that they wanted to scale back support. So paired with the, pandemic, we started messaging to readers and funders that we were on shaky ground and, might not continue. So I guess the sort of positive to report is the recent communications I've had with funders have been sort of good. So we did recently get approval from AC Transit for their amount that they gave last year. So that's good. That's $2,500. And we also were successful in our application to the Port of Oakland, although not as successful as I wanted to. So the past 2 years, they've given $2,500 as a part of their community grant supporting program. I put in for 5 this time, saying we'll take the same as we did last year if that's all you're going to give us, but we'd love to get more because in part I do that because Port of Oakland's grant program supports a lot of in-person events. And so I assume a lot of the organizations who would have been applying for that money don't have that. They either are going to cancel that event or their case for, potentially getting that money is weaker. So anyway, they did not give us the full 5, but they gave us the same as last year, 25 or 2,500. So that's good. And then I think I haven't reported to this body yet. We got the news that Valley Water's in as well for the same amount as last year. So that's 1,000. Question. Oh, so a no, I got a firm no from Samtrans, Caltrain, the woman that we had tried, Alex Starr and I had tried together, Casey Fromson, she at least gave an answer, right, and was responsive, unlike our previous contact. So that's not surprising given their state of affairs. I think it also doesn't look great because they have their November ballot measure. So BART is on the fence. They didn't know their budget as of, or the marketing manager that we interface with didn't know their budget as of a couple weeks ago. Sherry signed the contract with the Air District and that's been submitted. Our MTC contract stands in effect. So right now, as far as, I don't know what the official budget numbers are in the Monitor project, but just back of the envelope, like we're close to where we need to be for sort of what I projected. My variable, the main variable in the budget is my salary. So I had said I'd go ahead and take 20 grand. And we're close to getting there. If we can get a standard donation year, which I think we're in line to do, then I should be able to make that amount of money. So beyond that, there's not a whole lot more to say, except, I mean, I keep plugging the email newsletter. It's been really doing quite well as far as subscribers. We're well past 1,500 people. And the growth rate is excellent. So if that continues, and who's to say that it will, we will run up against MailChimp's paid barrier. So that'll be an expense. I just want to, I feel like this is the future of the project, and Cecily is very gung-ho on continuing. It seems without question. And so I encourage everybody to continue to interface with her. I think some of you have done a great job of kind of reaching out and giving her, messages of support or tips and what have you. And, I think ideally she starts to get somewhat of a relationship with the readership. If you read her message from yesterday, she kind of gave a, we're done with year 2 kind of overview. And she mentioned some of the people who had been in contact with her over email. And I think that's the kind of thing I'd like to see more of. Yeah, I mean, I think eventually, ultimately, we do one more year of the print publication, and then depending, I mean, we can, like I've said and I'll stop talking soon, but during the convention last month, I think our future really is, I mean, I will continue to look for funding sources this year. But I think our future really is in that email newsletter. I think that we discontinue print once the MCC contract expires this time next year, and she kind of takes over the reins of the electronic publication. She, hopefully earns a little bit more money than she does now, and then I sort of exit and, sort of fulfilling a transition. So that's kind of it. If you have questions, or I don't know if we're having a larger discussion or what have you, but that's kind of,
Well, Alec, do we have click-through information? I'm not a tech, and so I'm maybe not even using the right language, but can we trace the fact that people not only come, to our first page, but that they actually maybe read an item or two within the electronic version?
Yeah, so for MailChimp offers a sense of who clicks through things. Sherry, you were one of the top clickers on yesterday's email, so thank you. It's creepy.
I do my part.
It's very, the surveillance aspect of the internet I find troubling. But don't worry, I won't sell your information online, Sherry. That goes for the rest of you. And then the website itself comes with a host of sort of analytical tools that I have really not dug into, but, are sort of ripe for the digging. So yeah, those metrics are available. I don't know that, I think part of the reason I haven't looked into it is because I don't know that we generate numbers that are commensurate with our, the money that we get, if that makes sense. Right. So like, we can't take these numbers to some like deep pocketed company and say, look how much traffic we get, you should pay us this money. Like, for as little of a budget as we run, I don't think that, like, we're over punching our weight in terms of, money per click type thing. Does that make sense?
Over punching our weight in terms of course.
Yeah. So like, we're exceeding what we ought to get. Like, the money that we get is more than what we ought to based on industry standard for click-through rate, is my guess. I could be wrong.
Alex, and then Kathleen.
Well, I have a kind of a wild thought that was going through my brain, which happens frequently now since I don't do much of anything else. Um, is there any kind of thought, or maybe we can talk about this later in another meeting when we have a bit more time. Is there any way we could have some kind of monitor, I don't know, conference or something like a Zoom thing on a specific topic with some experts, rather than having like a league day, just having like an hour or something and having it sponsored by the monitor as a way of getting more people interested in it. Anyway, I'm just throwing that out there.
Monitor
You mean
sponsorship.
like a
Kathleen?
one of those things where
It's like
somebody, for example, writing a league monitor article finds somebody that they think would be a really good resource or a couple of really good resources, and then we do a little panel discussion using those people.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
A specific
so-
topic with very specific people.
Well, so I think there is, we did get an inquiry a year ago. So this woman in San Francisco who had wanted to host Leslie and other writers to talk about recycling. We had done an edition, I think it was the April 2019, about recycling. And so, that's not really, it doesn't make a ton of sense, because although our writers are highly informed, what you really want to hear from is the people they interviewed, right? But I think that there is room to do something sort of monitor oriented with, let's say Leslie interviewing somebody on a Zoom about air quality or something, or, that kind of thing, how they get structured and organized. It's kind of wide open. I mean, but it goes in line. I think the main point I'll make before ending is that it goes in line with the idea of cultivating, the virtual or electronic community that I was talking about in terms of getting Cecily in the mix and stuff like that. So getting people like kind of thinking front of mind for the monitor. So yeah, it seems like a good idea. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you. Kathleen.
Before I bring up
And then Ann.
2 points. I think that the idea of that kind of forum or that kind could really lend itself to our multiple discussions about doing our task forces or focus groups, because why we have been talking about that has been what are the issues, how are we coming to those decisions, and making sure our local leagues understand where we are coming from and have their input as well. We could use that kind of a forum, but we can talk about that more when we talk about the IN North, and it's not reviving it. They're going on. It's just the method and how we're doing it. I'm just addressing your agenda item. But what I wanted to bring up with Alec is I really think it would be rather good to have analytics done on the monitor and on Cecily's part, because I would want to know, when you're running something, what's driving them, what was of interest. I think that would be very helpful knowledge, and it would help us also promote it better. I'm not saying we do it for everything, but I think periodic analytics would be good to be done, and just look at it very briefly. What's going on? And
yeah, so I think you're right. I do, I've got nothing formal, but I generally check to see what the numbers have been. I can tell you kind of generally speaking, so like I said, we have 1,500. It's like, I think those exact numbers, 1,536. It varies every day because people add and people drop. So our general open rate for the email is 400 people. And our general clicks is something along the lines of like 40. One thing that was interesting recently, I looked at, well, yeah, anyway, we'll leave it at that.
Okay, let's see, who else? Ann, and then Eric, and then Vita.
So this goes to analytics. I was wondering if it's possible to tell us how many by league, how many people are signed up for the newsletter. Because I was going to outreach to, the electronic newsletter. I was going to outreach into my league to say, please sign up for it. But I didn't know whether there was 15% of our league already has it or 85% or whatever. So my first question is it a simple one just to be able to tell all leagues how many people are signed up and how to sign up? And then the same thing on, maybe this is what Kathleen was talking about, what's driving as it relates to monitor notes. As a result of one of the notes, there was a information about a class on climate change driving insurance rates. It was put on by an organization in Southern California. Long story short, I'm taking that class. And so it was, I really found it valuable to read in the area that I was interested in. So that would be really good to see what do people click on and read in those notes and other things.
Yeah, that's great. I'm so glad that item, because I didn't think, I was like, it was surprised that she put that one in there. So she'll be happy to know it paid off. The league question is a tricky one. The MailChimp interface does not harvest that when somebody signs up. There's no like sign up for your, tell the person what league you're in. That list exists sort of generally, and you could, I don't know how you could cross-reference it to see like how many from South San Mateo County are, on there. So that's a tricky one. But the names exist at a minimum. It just would be a lot of work to figure out what percentage of your league is signed up.
Sounds like more work than value.
Yeah, I think so. But I feel like, it can just sort of steady, persistent, friendly reminders to sign up if you haven't. And, I've put in a new item within the body of the text saying, if the main meta messaging was like, give us money. But now I changed it maybe 5 months ago to say like, share this, right? Like, if you think this is good, please forward it to your friend. And that seems to be having an effect. But yeah, I think, absent some real hard data on which leagues are in, it's just kind of like a, friendly yet persistent kind of like, sign up, this is good. And then, yeah, in terms of the analytics, again, I think it's sort of the same as, my response to what somebody else had asked. Just it's there, and I can see the highlights as far as what ones seem to pop. But then I think also it's useful to have when people tell us, they write Cecily back and say, oh, this is really useful, or they let us know a little more proactively. I don't know if she's gotten any responses from her message yesterday, but that was definitely a takeaway, like, hey, I want to know feedback. So I'll let you all know what kind of responses she may have received from the readership.
Anyway, there's also 2 of us from the league, one in Palo Alto as well as myself, that are taking that insurance class.
Okay, right on.
Let's see, Eric, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. I wanted to ask about sponsorships and contracts. Why do these organizations pay us anything at all? And are they obligated to, or?
Tradition. Tradition. Tradition.
There's no obligation. It's so I think most of the board knows, but for those who don't, the publication started 46 years ago on a grant from the Environmental Protection Agency. There was a sort of a league leader organizer who was married to an EPA administrator, and the EPA kind of launched it, and then the Metropolitan Transportation Commission took over funding from at some point. I don't know how that happened, but these are just kind of like the money. So the monitor gets 2 contracts, one from the MTC and one from the Air District, and then grants from these other places like BART, East Bay Regional Park District, and that was just kind of the hard work of organizers back in the 80s and 90s kind of beating the bushes, going out to government agencies saying, you know, you all aren't getting real coverage in the press, but you should be, what you do is important and people should know about it. So they kind of gave money in for, I mean, I think it depended on who was doing the asking and what time period you're talking about, but it was kind of like, I think a lot of the money comes out of these agencies like community relations type departments. The short answer though, Eric, is that nobody's obligated to give us any money. I mean, that's why we're not getting a lot of money. It's not why that's why we're not making budget. We're expendable.
We rely on estates.
Yeah, we would not exist if it weren't for Yvonne Koshland.
That's right. Yvonne was our heaviest contributor. She was a true believer in the Monitor in the most positive sense, and wrote us a check for $50,000 during her lifetime, and sustained us then for at least a couple of years on that. The thing I regret, and I'm going to call on you, Vita, in just a second here, but the thing I regret, Alec and everyone, is that we are balancing this budget on Alec's back. He's taking these cuts in pay. And it's marvelous that he is doing it for us, but that should not be something that is sustaining for either him or us. And so we'll have this ongoing discussion, probably in each and every board meeting, about what is happening with Monitor and what's our best way into the future. Vita, you had something to say.
Alec has done such a great job over the years. It's really amazing. And I'll have to lift up that comment as well. I hate to see Alec continually having to take a pay cut, you know, in his career to focus on the Monitor. So I hope that there's some way in the future that we can lift him up as much as possible. In past years, we have really looked at local leagues and asked them to add information to their membership brochures. And I put the question here in the chat about their mailing list to opt in or opt out of LWVBA mailings. So I'm hoping we can follow through with that this year, since we're starting on a new year, make sure that we have that information opt in, opt out for Bay Area. And after our conversation, I see that we really need a Monitor history little note on our website. So talking about the history details, we have someone new, Eric, doesn't have the contextual history, and it would be great to inform members of why it's so important.
Right. Margot will be coming in later too, and she doesn't have that background. So yes.
Yes, indeed. It doesn't have to be lengthy.
Yeah.
But Leslie and Alec, maybe you could get together and compare your notes about.
So Leslie did a sort of in our 40th anniversary year, she did a series about sort of the history of the Monitor. Mm-hmm. Maybe what we can do, because Cecily's taking July off, maybe one of these weeks we'll just do like a retrospective, and I'll just put all of Leslie's old articles into a package and just say like, here's our history or something. What do you think, Leslie? Is that good?
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I think we could do that. And if we did kind of a little mini summary, then that could go on the webpage with a link to the longer pieces. Mm-hmm. And that would be basically our history of the project.
That sounds like a plan. Alexandra.
Alex with an X.
Not to be confused with.
Alex with a C. Yeah, and here we are in my screen. I'm sitting right above Alec with a C, so even more confusing. Anyway, one of the, I don't know if this is a lost opportunity or not, but I frequently communicate with Bob Wachowski, who's our state senator from our area and a league member, and actually got his start in politics by being our meter greeter at our league meetings, and went on from there to various appointed commissions and then elected to the city council, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, his staff reads the Monitor from page, you know, they get the printed copy. they pass it around. Every time I come in, they say something nice about it. So maybe elected officials, I don't know, do we automatically send stuff to Bay Area elected official offices or not? I mean, the local office, not the one in Sacramento.
Yeah, no, they so like Barbara Lee gets it at her different offices in Oakland and elsewhere in the East Bay. So yeah, I mean, that's just one example. Everybody gets it at their different points of business.
Elected
Okay.
officials were the target audience when the project started. So they've traditionally always been on our list. It used to be a problem keeping up the mailing list to make sure that we had the correct people in correct places.
Yeah.
I think that Alex probably had a little more help with that just from offices themselves as we've gone more electronic.
This is a bit of an aside, but I think it's a good one to share. In terms of the elected officials piece of things, one of our smaller, a good recent kind of fun victory for us was Robin Meadows heard back from a city council member of Emeryville who had read her article on the possibility of bringing sea otters back to San Francisco Bay and wanted to do it. So I think that's kind of neat that because that is sort of ostensibly we're not existing to like lobby people to do things that we write about, but it shows influence. It shows that people are paying attention.
Good one. Okay, one more, Roma, and then let's move on the agenda.
I won't repeat what's already been said, but I just want to highlight one thing you said, Alec, because I've noticed it lately in my local. And that is the monitor notes is starting to get traction. I'm seeing people forwarding it, asking questions. So I think you hit on something with this format. So I just want to let you know that and I'm going to be trying to do a little bit more promotion, but I think you really hit upon something. And I will be sending Cecily a compliment too.
Awesome. Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So do you have anything else you need to say, Alec, before we move on?
I do not know. That's it.
Okay, thanks. Alec will be a regular part of our agenda each meeting, and we'll try to put that at the beginning of the agenda too, Alec, so you don't have to hang out forever.
I have one additional comment here.
Yes, please.
And that is in terms of distribution. We have a new communications chair in my local league, and she's very attuned to social media. That's one of the things she's following. And she was thrilled to find that there was the mention of the Diablo Valley League, and I think Monitor Notes, or it was the meeting we've done that came up in Monitor Notes. She grabbed it immediately, and I said to her, well, just keep following this because, you know, this is a league publication. You can use anything that pops up in the Bay Area Monitor Facebook, whether it's Monitor Notes or something or other else. So I think that that's something else to emphasize to local leagues, is that their communications, their social media people may want to use this as an addition to their feeds.
Yeah, we've definitely been trying to push. I mean, I as I said at the convention Zoom, that I would love to see more leagues contacting Cecily to be like, hey, we're doing this event, you know, and it's like, we do want to keep it within monitor coverage area, but like to take a sort of one-off, like the Piedmont League.
I was thinking having it go the other way as well. To have the communications chairs need to realize that this is something that they can pick up, even if it isn't about their own league. If it's something else that's in our interest areas, which obviously all of the monitor stuff is, that this is something that they can add if they're looking for items to continue to have something new and different on their own Facebook or Twitter feeds, that this is something that they can then also draw on and look to as they look to the other levels of league.
Indeed. Excuse me. I've got this perpetual frog. Thank you very much. Should we wrap this up now? Okay. Yep. Alec, you're welcome to stay on, of course, but you can also disappear if you like.
Yes, I do. I have something else I have to take care of. So
all right.
Good to see everybody, and I will see you later.
Thanks. Oh, I thought you wanted to take care of it here. Okay. All right. Moving right along. Excuse me. Just a quickie here to indicate that Madeline is agreed to put the directory together again. Do you want to say anything about that, Madeline?
Yeah, the one thing, Avita had mentioned this, a really good start for me to do that is to get a copy of everybody's convention kits, because they've got the list of who their new, that's where the list of new officers lives. So, but it's not as easy to find. I started to go on the hunt to populate an Excel chart with all of it, and it's not as obvious in some cases. So yeah, right. So I'm looking for it though. So if you've got yours and you could forward it to me, that would be incredibly helpful, because they're sometimes hidden.
Indeed, and sometimes the people who can send it to you are hidden.
Yes.
So we also had this situation that since we were doing ours on Zoom this year and getting the materials out almost totally electronically, that I put together a PDF of the convention kit so we could have it on the website, but otherwise the materials were all coming from different people and different pages.
Right.
So what you really need is the nominating committee list, right?
That's really all I need.
That's the one.
Budget. I don't need, right. I need the nominating.
Right, you need the slate, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Madeline. If you got Berkeley, Albany, Emeryville?
I'm not sure. So
I'm
you
not
could
sure
send
either.
it to me. I can have
I'll
it
send it.
twice.
Okay.
I'm fine.
All right. Thank you very much. That's
Thank you.
always an ongoing chore, for heaven's
Yeah.
sake. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, next item. Eric. Are you here, Eric? There he is.
Yeah, I can hear you.
On different screens, apparently, you all pop up in a different orientation. So you're in my second rank, Eric.
Yeah.
But first on my list. You're listed as climate change for your portfolio here, and that's swell. And you've heard of other people being interested in the general subject too of climate change. So we're definitely going to be addressing it to the extent that our local league here, ILO, can. But Eric, I was traditionally over the years, a portfolio of the BAL has been natural resources. And so I just wanted to check here what your thoughts are about expanding your title to natural resources, and if anybody else has any comments about that as to whether we can just stick with calling Eric climate change, or whether we should expand that portfolio to natural resources. First you, Eric, and any thoughts you have on that?
Yeah, it's okay with me. It does make the whole topic bigger, and we'll have to look at all the different parts. But Diz Swift, who's the head of it in California, I believe her department is called Natural Resources, and so we could call ours that also, because they would fit in. So yeah, so it would be a good move. Yes.
Okay, good. So you have no objection. Anne and Kathleen?
This title has gone back and forth over the years. Eric, I was natural resources and then climate change. Natural resources aligns with the policy area of the state and the national leagues, so that's in favor of it. But somewhere along the line, and I can't remember when, people thought that was too broad and wanted to narrow it to what are we going to do. So that's why it became climate change. So I think it really doesn't make any difference, but I think it may be important to have natural resources, and then what you as the portfolio owner choose to emphasize is up to you. And then that will change over the years. And so I'm in favor of natural resources.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's fine.
Kathleen?
My suggestion is to have it as natural resources / climate change.
if that'll fit, on the screen.
Yeah. I'm just saying because it goes to that whole issue of climate change. But natural resources is a bigger, and so we still
Much bigger, right?
yeah.
And so
That's
the,
why
the
/ climate change.
Even
Right.
includes otters. Okay, Alex.
I just wanted to chime in and say, to me, if we combine them, or at least natural resources sort of covers the whole base, maybe we'll attract more people who might, you know, help on a project or a committee or something if it's a more broader title. That's all.
Yeah, climate change sounds more technical, you know, and maybe some
Yeah.
people might be a bit off-put if they're not an expert in climate change. So, okay, all right. Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Eric, for your flexibility. Appreciate that a lot. All right, we are at, oh my God, we are at 10:55.
Oh, God.
The agenda says 10:55. Okay.
I know.
Oh,
This is the
okay.
first, I'll have you know. In all the
So
years
for the
I've been
next
on
10
this.
minutes, that's right. We have on the agenda, excuse me, I'm sorry. I have a very phlegmy chest and it sometimes comes up higher. Establishing Bay Area League committees or working groups. We can work on what we prefer as its name and recruiting for them. I want Anne, if she would, to take charge of this discussion. But first, shall we decide whether we want to call these working groups or committees? Is there any attitude about that? Do you have a preference, Anne?
I don't. I think it's up to the board how to decide.
Okay. What's your preference, folks? Roma.
I think I was the one who suggested working group, only because when I say committee to people, they tend to run the other way. But working group, I don't know. I don't really care either. It's whatever the board wants.
Okay, well let's take a straw poll on that. Oh, and by the way, if after we finish this, because I'm having Anne sort of lead it, but if you Mr. Werner choose to leave because you're a nominating committee member, you're welcome to go or stay. Does your thumb up mean you're staying? Oh, you're bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Oh, bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, and thanks so much for the work you're going to be doing next year and for coming today. Appreciate that.
Say hi to Kate.
I'm sorry, what?
I just said say hi to Kate.
Oh,
Kate
okay.
Quick.
Kate
Again.
Quick? Oh, yes, of course. Is Kate okay?
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
but she's the one who got him entangled with us.
Righto.
Yes.
I just wondered if there was any other bulletins about Kate that we should know.
No. Oh, gosh, I hope not.
No. Okay, thank you very much, Ken. Let's take a straw poll. Those who favor the use of the word committee, if you would wave your hand.
Could I say something here?
Oh, sure, Eric.
Oh, yeah. A committee is a permanent organization. It lasts for a long time. And a working group often implies it's an ad hoc thing that's assembled for a certain purpose. And it'll go out of business after it's solved its problem.
Mm-hmm. We don't ever solve problems here. We just talk about them. Okay. Thank you, Eric. That's an important insight. Okay, those in favor of working group, if you'd raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, let's try committee again. I think working group is our choice. There's a certain ambivalence here about that, but let's go with working group for now. Okay. All right. Anne.
So I'm really excited that the board is going to try to establish working groups, because I think it will help bring other league members into at least knowing what the regional league does, and also involving them where necessary. And I think each working group will be different depending on what's happening in the region about that topic. So so there could be Zoom meetings and there could be activities, and I'm not going to go into that. The question is recruiting for those committees. You'll get some of the information from the convention kits that you're going to get as to who owns the portfolios for that. But there'll be some leagues that may not have somebody on natural resources. They may have housing and transportation. And so the question was, what role could the nominating committee play in addition to the convention kits to help locate people interested in those portfolios? And so I'd just like to hear from you. Is there a role? Isn't there a role? And just on that topic.
And do you see, and my ears are really perking up about this now. Do you see an ongoing role then for the nominating committee to not just wait 2 years and, you know, put the board together, but to help recruit within the local leagues?
So maybe. And the reason I say that is that it took us, some of you who are also on the nominating committee, it took us a while to, I'll say, get organized as to what are the names and what their contacts are. And I saw these working groups as a means to already have a, you know, start out with a portfolio of who's not on the board, but active in these areas, somebody that we might want to draw from. And so it would be good to have those
Uh-oh.
And you just froze.
Okay, I'm not
I froze a while ago. There she goes.
Huh.
Am I back on?
Yeah.
I didn't freeze on my end, so, but it's happened to me before on Zoom. So it just occurred to me that knowing who the people who are active in a portfolio area but not on the board before we start the committee work might be a good idea. And I was trying to think of, well, how could the nominating committee help the work of the board beyond just the every 2 years? And so my thought was helping to locate who those people are in the league. The leagues that are interested in the different portfolios could be a spot for that if it's helpful. So it was just asking a question.
I think we love the idea of the ongoing continuation of the, Ken has left for the moment, but you could spring this on him later. Vita, you had something to say.
Thanks, Ann. I
Oh,
think
she's
that's a
frozen.
great idea. And one of the things that I would like to see, and it makes it much easier now with Zoom, is the nominating committee attending a local league board meeting to tell them that, you know, you are a standing committee, you will be looking, you know, please, you know, if you're interested, you know, put the plea out to the board members so that they can self-identify and get back to you. And also plan to attend annual meetings. So that could be, you know, just to have 5 minutes to talk at an annual meeting or board meeting would be a great thing.
Thank you. Leslie.
In response to what Vita's talking about, I think that ties into our next agenda topic, which I was hoping we could get to after Margot comes in. Because it has to do with how we interrelate with local leagues. I'm not sure that the nominating committee has to be the group that does this, depending on what else we decide we're going to do in terms of other relationships with local leagues, networking of various types. So, you know, rather than say, yeah, let's have the nominating committee do it, I think we should all of us be thinking about who the appropriate people are to take which messages.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't think the nominating committee would be the sole one to do it. I agree with Leslie that we
Right.
will all do it. It's just that there might be a role there, and then the nominating committee could keep the roster of all the people that are on these different committees, working groups, so that we have something to start with at the beginning
Right,
to
right.
do some outreach for the nominee in 2 years.
Yeah, the board members with portfolios can take a lead in this too. If you're transportation, go find the transportation people in the local leagues. We've got what, 19 local leagues? Is that
20.
Is it 20?
20.
Yeah. So that
Well,
is a lot of communication, but at least thank God there's emails. So
Yeah, and our roster convention kit identified who is the portfolio holder for transportation and housing. And so when Roma asked about housing, I knew exactly who it was, and we've already connected those two people up. And it occurred to me, and I said this to Roma, that Roma had described that the regional fair share housing called the RENA is much larger and is coming up. And I said to Roma, that some of our local people, even though they're in housing, may not know what the RENA is, even though it's been around for years and years and years. And so maybe a Zoom meeting could be, and could even include somebody at a regional agency for about 10 minutes to say, what is RENA? What's the schedule? The real basics, so that when it goes to the cities for their consideration, the local people will know what it is. And if they have people that get all riled up, they'll have some background as to what is it, and the real basics, instead of being taught without any knowledge. So there's some benefits to this, to just provide people with basic information about the topic, about the events that are coming up.
Sherry, can I
Alex.
circle back?
I'm sorry, what?
May I circle back to, finish the
Yeah,
comment?
and then Alex.
Okay, just quickly, and I just wanted to clarify, I think the nominating committee is the first touch point for our local leagues to reach out there. I also agree with Leslie that there's other opportunities for board members to, touch the local leagues, but I think that the nominating committee is a good touch point for local leagues to know that this is coming up. In 2 years, it's coming up. So who are you going to train and offer up to the Bay Area League?
Thank you. Alex.
Yeah, I put something on the chat thing. I've been doing so many of these Zoom meetings, I'm kind of automatically go to that. I think if I knew who was interested in transportation in any local league, I would definitely contact them, via email or whatever, and try to perk their interest in meeting remotely, as we have to do everything nowadays. But I also want us to be wise in how many contacts we make. I mean, don't overload the local leagues. Make sure that we communicate amongst ourselves. Like if we're interested in housing, and someone else is interested in transportation, and someone else is interested in some climate issue, that we don't all rush to address local leagues in all our requests. So I think we have to be measured, eager but measured, and careful about how we approach this. I don't think we can overload the local leagues. I think we have to kind of draw them in rather than jump on them.
Roma.
My thought was that since I'm liaison to the 5 leagues in Santa Clara County, that I would do a joint pitch to all those leagues, and Ann will help me out because she attends. And I've already got a transportation person for Alex.
Yay!
Yes. So, but going back to the nominating committee I just want to say that this year's nominating committee was a wonderful experience. And I just don't want to lose all the good conversations we had with Bonnie and Kate in terms of just brainstorming about people that couldn't be on the board. So somehow to keep them in the loop with next year's nominating committee. And I don't want to be overly prescriptive about how they do it, but just not to lose the thread of who these folks are. I mean, honestly, I have to tell you, it was the best experience I've ever had being on a nominating committee. Just a lot of good energy and thought. So it to me, I sort of saw a model of how you're supposed to do it, you know, under Bonnie's leadership. So that was cool.
Excellent. It's wonderful to hear things like that, because that is often a very tough job to recruit for, is nominating. When Madeline flagellates the local leagues to yield up their annual meeting kits, the page that we want, she can share that with all of our portfolio working group people too. And so if she would persist with that, even if they don't immediately respond, that's why I use the word flagellate. Okay. All right. I tell you what, we don't have, let's see, we don't have, oh heck, I've gone blank on who we're missing at the
Margot.
Yeah, let's wait for her and move on to this question of sending a letter recommending Khalid Kadir for the San Francisco Regional Water Control Board. First of all, this is the 11:30 part of the agenda. First of all, do we do this? Do we send letters recommending specific people for state boards? I don't know what our history is on this. So can I be enlightened? Can we be enlightened? Yeah, Leslie.
I believe we've been asked to do it before, and I don't think we do it. But that's just memory. My feeling is that we haven't done it.
Right. We don't ever see the spectrum then of other applicants, you know, when we zero in on somebody just because of whatever. And
I think there's a little bit of a worry too of it becoming, it's not exactly candidates, but it is people and that we're favoring. And I think there's been hesitancy over that as well.
I see. Anne?
The only time that I'm aware of us making any recommendation, and Alex with an X will remember this, is the BART board asked us for league recommendations. And so we came back with our league recommendation, but we haven't done it out of that specific thing.
Right. It was league people that we were recommending. It wasn't
That's
somebody.
Correct.
Yes, right.
Right. That's
yes, exactly.
Yeah,
right.
Sure. Alex.
Yeah, and the only reason we did that is because they actually wrote it into the bill.
Right.
2 of the 5 seats would be league members. I mean, when they announced it at the last meeting they had with all of the groups that were advising them on the ballot measure, there were probably close to 20 different groups. And they announced at the last meeting the content of the measure. And then as a kind of an aside at the end, they said, and there are going to be these 5 people in this oversight committee, and 2 of the 5 are to be league members. And I sat there with my mouth hanging open because they didn't tell us at all until that last moment.
Yeah,
I mean, there were 4 league members. We all went to the meetings, and then all of a sudden and I went, oh, well, I didn't use good language in my head anyway. I didn't say it out loud, thank goodness. But, and so we've had to, put various people on there, and they've been very qualified. In fact, we have 3 out of the 5 members now, because one member was so well qualified. She was more qualified than the person at the professional organization submitted a name, and she was better qualified than that. So they chose her. So we had to get
know how to dominate. Well, it sounds like, let's take a show of hands here of those who would favor our supporting a particular candidate or whether we should stay out of it. Let's put your hand up if you think that we should endorse. Okay, hands up if you think we should not. Okay, I think we will not be. And thank you for the history on that. Yes, Kathleen.
Um, I'm ambivalent about this, but ambivalent in one sense is that I think it would be really good if we registered, some kind of support, but we don't know who the other candidates are.
Right.
And so it's hard for us to be able, because maybe some of the other candidates are league members or something, we just don't know. But so that's kind of where I was back and forth. Only reason I think it would be good is that it could, if something looking down the line, our issues, our priorities, and here you've got somebody in a sense or some that would really be a good one to promote or represent. Or are we only just going to promote someone who's a league member to do it?
Right. Thank you. Thank you. I think we can, Roma.
I'm fine with this, so we can move on. I'll just carry it back if the board doesn't do that, so that's fine.
Okay. Thanks so much. We've got Margot with us now, but
Yes.
I'm a little alarmed. We seem to have lost our secretary, Marianne Benson. I don't see her in the gallery.
She
Hi
may be
there.
unavailable.
Marianne Benson is here on the phone with me, and she's FaceTiming in. So
Wait a
say
minute.
hi,
with-
Marianne.
Who's the with me? Wait.
Marianne, she's on the FaceTime phone call with me.
Oh.
Because my Zoom just ended and I couldn't get back on.
Oh.
You have to,
Oh.
it happened to me, and you have to go back to the initial thing that Madeline sent out and click on that.
I did that
Then you'll
two
get
or three
back to it.
times, and it just kept the little thing kept circling.
Ah.
Call
dear.
it.
Oh, okay. So
Mine circled
it might
that
be
too.
easy.
Just hang on.
If you ask someone else to take notes on the rest of this and send them to me.
Huh.
Well, it'll be recorded,
boy.
won't it?
but you're welcome to stay here and watch the meeting so you can participate with us if you'd like.
All right.
Okay. So she's just going to be here on my cell phone watching.
Huh. Madeline, is there any way we can fix this and get her?
Well, I think she might phone in, just call in, and then she'll be able to hear the whole meeting. If she calls into the, the Zoom phone number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I've done that from afar, is
Yeah.
call in by Zoom, and then you hear it, but you can't see it.
Right, but then then we could hear her.
Marianne, but you'll be here with us.
Right. But the question is, who's going to be taking notes? If we've got to have someone now then who will volunteer to do that for the balance of the meeting here. We're just taking
how
action
about-
notes.
Marianne, if you could hang up and then try the call to see if you can get in.
So Marianne says that she can hear you and she can take notes. And you could always watch the recording.
Well, that's true too. That's true, Sharon. We'll have a recording. Recording for tape.
Wait a minute. Who's talking now?
Me. Madeline.
Oh, okay. All right.
So she will be able to watch the recording of this is being recorded.
I see. I'd forgotten that. Yes. And the chat
Is
comments
also.
too
Yeah.
are also being recorded. So I'm going to be reviewing those after we go offline too. So if you have thoughts, please feel free to put them into chat. We haven't properly welcomed Margot. Margot, you're down there in the gallery. Hello.
Yes, I'm here and I'm having internet problems. So I have you on my iPhone and my granddaughter is going to try to look at my computer and figure that out.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Well, we can see and hear you, and we know even who you are, that you're not just iPhone. So, got it. Welcome. And you're just here in a very timely way because we're going to move.
You just froze.
I'm sorry? Oh, yeah. Rose, at least on our screen, she has a permanent smile. Yes. Okay. We could be frozen in worse ways, I guess. So let's make sure that she can hear us before we proceed with the part that we wanted to be sure she was here for. And that is the item at 11:05 on whether we can accommodate local leagues by allowing observation of our board meetings via Zoom during the pandemic and after that, and whether this might be able to replace the
Yeah.
the interleague network or revive it or whatever. So this is a general discussion on coordinating with local leagues. Hi, Margot, are you back?
Yes, I am. I'm back on the iPhone.
Okay. All right.
Uh,
We're at the item that we
So,
wanted to especially have you here for.
exactly. And I appreciate that.
Okay. You seem to be kind of intermittent, and right at the moment on my screen, at least, you're frozen again. So whenever is it a granddaughter who's coordinating your computer?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But
I tell you what, we're scheduled for a break at 11:35, but we can take that earlier, a 10-minute break, and Margot then can perhaps, get
Deal with
herself
tech support.
unfrozen. And
what I find, I have a house up in Clear Lake, and it's in a sort of a digital desert, and I find that Zoom takes a lot of, I'll call it bandwidth, and there's not enough up there, and it comes and goes. And so I find that when I have problems, I have to just do it through the audio, and I call in.
Okay.
So it could be a problem not so much with your machines, but rather with your available bandwidth that comes and goes in areas. And so I suggest if it doesn't work in the next few minutes, then just try the audio.
okay. Alex, you have an idea?
It could also be interference with another device.
Right.
We've had that happen when Peter and I are on the same Zoom call. He is like over 100 feet away on the other side of the house. But if we're closer than that, it just doesn't work.
So if her granddaughter is trying to help her with her computer in the same room, that might be
right
part of the problem.
I see. Okay, well, let's let her go do what she needs to do. Let's take our break and be back. Let's see. Let's be back at 11:30. That's a little less than 10 minutes, but you probably don't need 10. So we'll reconvene.
And I apologize. Here I come late, and I come with all these technical problems.
No apologies in this era, let me tell you. Okay. All right. We'll see y'all again at 11:30 then.
Okay.
Great.
So we're going to keep on the call, but just we all get to go away, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm going to post the telephone number into chat so that if somebody was going to just call in, they could just use the telephone number, which not everybody has. So what is it?
Yeah, that might apply to Mary Ann too.
Morgan, maybe if it's in here or in this hour. 2020 vision.
I can't do anything until it turns on.
Yeah.
You probably understand this. And I would stay where it works. Don't move around so much.
Okay, and there is a Zoom icon.
Yeah.
I got some vital stuff.
Looks good. One of
Milk and dark chocolate toffee chips, Trader Joe's.
the best. I like their bark chocolate as well. I really appreciate being on the agenda to talk about reaching out to the other leagues. So
Okay, well, we'll get underway in just a couple of minutes.
and I had cataract surgery, so this was a pre-op for that. But 10 days ago, I fell on my back.
Ah.
Oh.
So, and this is the third time in 3 years. So my daughter and granddaughter have been here helping me. So.
Great. And you're being erect. Look at you.
Yeah.
You're
well,
sitting. Oh my God.
Yeah. In pain.
I imagine so. Well, you'll be forgiven if you want to disappear for, however long.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope you get fixed, girl.
I know.
Are you going to have the cataract surgery?
I had it, and
it's
even
done.
with this, and that was a post-op. Now I've got to do the other eye. And my girlfriend said, "Be prepared, Margot, when you look in the mirror." And here I'm looking in the iPhone. Now I've got 20/20 vision in one eye. And I'm saying, oh my God. And she said, be ready.
Well, you're looking pretty good.
Oh dear.
Sherry, I would like to take a photo of all of us. When we come back together, can we all smile and I'll take a screenshot?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So we'll take
We
a
can do
photo
this.
together yet far apart.
We just have to have Alex illuminate herself better.
Oh, sorry. I thought I'd give you a good view of the fog behind me.
It's beautiful.
Oh yeah, what is that?
Well, I can see it's actually just well, from where we are, we can see all the way from the Sierras to the bay.
Wow.
And so I'm looking, if I look to my left and kind of tweak my neck a little bit, I can see Diablo pretty clearly. And everything looks very golden hills as opposed to dried out grass. When I first moved to California, I kept thinking, why do they call them golden? They're just dried out grass. And finally, when I had a I saw a sunset on it, and then it glowed, and then I thought, oh, okay. Now I
It
understand.
took me 20 years to call them golden and not brown. I'm from New England, where it rains all the time.
Yeah, I heard a little clip in your voice, so I thought, I bet she's from somewhere in New England. So.
You know, when we get to be all human again and getting together personally, I'm going to beg Alex to use her house for a meeting.
Oh, sure.
Get up that beautiful hill, that beautiful place. It's a bit of a trek, but she's a good guide for it.
Transportation issues.
What have you?
We had our retreat at Alex's house one year, and it was really a treat to go up there and be amongst the hills.
That was it. That's what I'm recalling too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
Oh,
You better
funny, my
stay there,
daughter-
Alex.
Oh, that's my
daughter
son.
now live here in the guest house. She's a clinical psychologist, and she's going to be starting a equine therapy practice for people with trauma victims. But she hasn't lived here since high school. So she said the other night they had dinner with us, and they were looking out the window at the sunset, and she said, Mom, I never knew we had sunsets like this. I said, you were too young to appreciate them, dear.
Oh, I don't know. Climate change has maybe contributed to
Well, living here since the early 1970s, we can see it. Every year we see changes, and we remember what it was like back in the good old days. And we can see the difference in the grass in the fields on the ranch.
Mm-hmm.
How many cattle can graze there properly without overgrazing. How the stream is doing, how the creek is doing. I mean, all these things, we witness them every year.
All these things.
So, yeah, we'd love to have you guys come up.
We'll help you witness sometime later.
Okay. There you go.
All right, let's get back on agenda here, and maybe trim a little bit too. But where we are is the 11:05, and we have nothing until 11:45. And so let's spend 10 to 15 minutes on this accommodation of local leagues, allowing observation. Margot, do you want to lead this discussion?
Yeah, let me talk first about outreach. And I want to say that I had just joined the league in December of 2019. And in February, I went to the league training, the Bay Area League training on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I came back to my league and I said, because I was on the executive committee, I said, I want to work on that, doing outreach to minorities to get them involved. And in doing that, we have done outreach with the Hispanic community and the African American community particularly. And with the African American community, we've done reaching out to the chambers and leadership groups, but also with the African American community, reaching out to the Black churches where we go in. We help register people to vote, and we do Voters Edge. And we also now have a partnership with the 2 African American sororities that are going to be assisting us with voter services, and also with a scholarship program that we have. And also I've reached out to Common Ground, and as you've read recently, there's now been approved to reimburse illegal immigrants for work before they paid into taxes, but they never got paid for it. So I think that we have to keep in mind also more inclusion when we do our outreach. So it's not just outreach to the league, but let's outreach to specific communities too. So my idea, and it was just on top of my hat when I was talking with Leslie about outreach to bring in the other leagues more, to working together is that we attend every league at least one of their meetings and do outreach and get from them their top 3 priorities, and that we take those top priorities and then we join the different leagues together and working in collaboration. So if their top priority is climate, those that are working on climate, that they all work together and share information and not work in isolation. It's like reinventing things. So, and really what I'm seeing, like with the Bay Area League and with my own league and also with the state league, it's been climate change and housing and the homeless have been 2 top priorities. So, and I said to Leslie, I said, I don't even mind, when all this changes and we can then be face to face with people, which is a better way really to form allies and first gain trust and reach common goals. It'll be easier when we can do it face to face. But in the meantime, we can do it through Zoom meetings and ask to be on the agenda for the different league members. And there are small things that we can do too to get leagues to work together. And that is like an example, when I attended that conference at the Google building in San Francisco on the Embarcadero 2 years ago, everyone kind of went their separate ways. And I think that like when we have a training and we invite all the leagues to get together, that we have them just introduce themselves to the people on their right and their left and have them mingle, and then make a pledge to reach out to them, whatever the issue was that they attended the conference for. So that's my thoughts.
Well, those are great thoughts, Margot, and thanks so much. And I'm happy to see too that Marianne has been able to rejoin us. Yay, thank you very much. And whatever you had to do that, remember how you did it so you can do it again.
I had to start all over. I had to turn everything off and start again.
Cool. And same for you, Margot, that you're looking fine. We're hearing you fine. And so I think things have definitely been fixed. And thank you very much. Margaret McGlone. Hi.
Sorry to interrupt.
Welcome. You're the fixer, huh?
Oh, okay. Yes. All right. I'll go on that. Then I can be with everyone.
Excellent. Yeah, you're welcome to stay.
I'm going in the other room.
Okay. All right. So you can go to your computer now, huh? Okay. All right.
Thanks, Morgan.
Boy, we aren't we something? Here we are in the 21st century and acting like we are.
Mm-hmm. I think it was her phone that was interfering.
Yeah, we got some hands here. Kathleen, Ann.
Well,
Kathleen.
We're looking at this agenda item and looking at what she's saying. We're talking 2 different things. We're talking internal communication among the leagues, and we're also talking external, our external actions.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to say is let us first first address the issue of
Kathleen, I'm getting it.
I think that you need to mute one of your iPhone or your computer.
Yeah, not me.
It's
Margot.
maybe Margot. Yeah.
I think it's Margot. Margot's iPhone needs to go off.
Okay, I got to get off.
Right. I hear what you're saying, Kathleen, and it was really just to make sure that we've got this topic on our list of things that we want to address, and not that we're going to take care of it today by any means. So,
but I'm looking, but the issue that we need to, and based on what you have the agenda item, the issue is determining how we're going to do that. What mechanisms are we going to be using? For example, it's not, we have had the ILN meetings, you know, it's not being revived, but it's how we've been doing it is really the issue. When the issue has been, why did we have those? It wasn't just for us to convey from the regional level to the locals what's going on. It was also the opportunity for the local reps from each of the leagues to come together and, in a sense, be able to interact and hear from each other. It was both. So the question is, are we going to, how we're going to do that moving forward, and what way we're doing it. Zoom, fortunately, Zoom addresses one of the critical issues that has always been there. We're a large region, a lot of coming from all over, the reps coming and meeting face to face was always problematic. It always had problems. Roma and Anne helped bridge some of that because they were meeting in the South Bay with the variety of leagues. But you see, to my way of thinking, it defeated the purpose. As good as that was, the South Bay leagues, though, never got to, in a sense, interact with the North and other, you know what I'm saying? So that issue wasn't resolved. With Zoom, we can resolve it a little better. It's so I'm throwing out, I'm recommending that we do identify maybe 3, I'm thinking of it quarterly, 3 particular times when we are bringing the reps from all the leagues together to have, if you will, a regional briefing. Maybe that's the way to put it. A regional, because it would be then to bring up what the issues are. And at that time, that briefing would be for those particular reps to bring up what their priorities are and then how we're going to move forward together.
Great. A whole new look at this. And you wanted to say something, and then Vita?
There's a lot of different issues packed into this topic. Kathleen was talking about one, Margot was talking about others. Right. Mine was more simple, and that is, or different, let's put it that way, is that one of the things that we've experienced, this is Roma and I, as being liaisons, is often there's questions about when is the convention? How do I find X? You know, and we've been able to do that. We've also, Roma and I have experienced where people have wanted to hear what's going on at a board meeting. And so my proposal was that there be, now that we have Zoom, that we have representatives identified in the leagues, optional to them, they can do it or not, that could call into or Zoom into these meetings. Now, then I was thinking, gee, Sherry, this would be really hard for you if there was like 20 other people on the call besides the board members. And so that's why I was suggesting in my email that they be observers, that they can hear but not participate. And any of you who are observers to the national convention, that's how it was. We could hear, but we didn't speak. So it was a way to learn. I learned a lot. And I was proposing that our Bay Area board offer to the local leagues an ability to have a designated liaison or whatever you want to call them to the Bay Area board, that they can be observers and they can hear but not participate in the board meetings. And so they can answer questions to their board when they come up. And also they could participate in what Kathleen just proposed on a quarterly basis. So that was really my idea. It was separate from the portfolio topical people because there's a whole segment of things that we do that are important to the local leagues, but not in a topical area. So that's my proposal.
Yeah. Thank you. Vita, did you have something you wanted to say? You're muted, by the way. There you go.
Yes,
You're
there are
unmuted.
several interesting things that are being proposed, and we are talking about external and internal. I agree with what Margot is proposing, that there does need to be a greater outreach. I do respect the work that Kathleen's done on that IN meeting, and I would like that to see that continue. In fact, I would like to have our South Bay leagues participate in that meeting while we're on Zoom, because we can get everyone together. We don't need to have the separation anymore, South and North. We can be one organization. And plus, I love what's happening in IN South, but I do think that we need to identify someone within leagues to be the representative, to be on the Bay Area interleague network, to be part of the network. I mean, that's what's missing, is more fresh blood in the network. I mean, I love the idea of informing presidents, but we need the blood of new individuals to be within our organization. And then finally, as far as the board meeting is concerned, I know a lot of people are interested in what's happening, but they're not really interested in how the sausage is made. So I think that if we have greater participation in our board briefs that are going out to people, I think is a great first step. I also think that if we're going to invite people to participate and observe our meetings, they need to participate in the meetings. So that would mean packing the agenda differently so we have open time for the public. And all of our members and anyone in the public is invited to come to our meetings with advance notice. So maybe we just need to push those feelings. But I don't want our local leagues to come as observers only, because that's going to create a bone of contention, because they won't have input at the meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Vita. And I'm going to address this to Madeline too. The thought that I am thinking is that we can invite people to come and Zoom in to us, and then have a place on the agenda, 10 minutes, say, it's like public comment, in which they could say something. And we could also have them put something into chat. Can people add to chat if they're in any way affiliated with Zoom? You know, if they've okay. So anybody watching essentially could put something into chat.
Yes.
And that we could either address it then or promise people that we will be looking at that after the meeting is over and we'll get back to them. Especially if there would be an identification and somehow, in chat where we knew who they were and how to get back to them.
So Sherry, what we can make sure they do is that we know who the participants are. And I'm a big believer, this board knows, I'm a big believer in public comment, right? And that I think it makes a lot of sense that if somebody really has an issue they want to bring to us, then do it in public comment. And if we had as a regular strategy saying, look, we're on Zoom and you need to know we're recording the meeting too, and we're recording the chat as well. People will all know that. We'll record who the participants are, and have a section that just says, if you want to put an idea in for an agenda item for a future meeting, there's a place for them to do that in chat. And if there's a comment they want to make, that there is usually I've done it, I've had a standing item for public comment at the beginning of meetings. And just have that for, as you said, for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and most of the time there's nobody giving any, but if there was somebody who wanted to, for some reason, they'd have the option. And now on Zoom, you really could have the option. I mean, it's much more realistic. And we can have a large number of people on Zoom. And then it's just a matter of making sure people are, we can, as co-hosts, mute and unmute people, and here we haven't had to do it at all. And probably we wouldn't have to there either.
Okay, this is something that we can't do in 5 minutes here. I'll put this on the agenda for the 13th and continuing, of how we get interactive public participation from local leagues, maybe even from other public members. God help us now that the Tea Party is not doing their thing. Oh, remember those days?
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, will we ever forget? Yeah. So
Oh,
much for
no.
that. We won't even
Yeah.
mention them anymore.
Oh, okay.
Kathleen?
Well, no, I agree. I agree with what's saying, and it goes back to the point that Margot was also making. That the perspective of what that outreach is to the communities and what have you. That, in a sense, can be one of the topics that we have where we're inviting them to talk about, and that's just going to be the focus, and then we can have the interaction going on. So
particularly now.
Particularly now.
And like our league, we just put together a proclamation that we're going to put in all the newspapers in our support of our brothers and sisters.
Uh-huh. Madeline, I have another technical question for you too. Should we eventually be meeting in person? Can we bring in a Zoom aspect of that?
I think we could. I mean, it's just
so we get a mixture, you know, of. Okay, we can explore that later. It won't happen right away, but yeah, Leslie.
Alec pointed out that if we go back to meeting in person at Sacred Heart, which I think is something we kind of skipped when we were at that point of setting meetings and whatever.
Yeah.
But that the Oakland League has put up a video screen next to the door so that it would be possible to hook up and actually have people Zoom in to our in-person meetings. And that, so when you ask about integrating Zoom into in-person meetings, that's one way we may be able to accomplish it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I really like that possibility. I mean, that's maybe something the pandemic has brought us. Roma.
We have a little bit more time. I don't want to get too in the weeds, but since South was brought up, I will comment that my father, I grew up in Texas. My father's favorite saying was, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And in terms of South Bay, they're very clear on their interests. I have trouble even getting on the agenda sometimes to talk about League Bay area. They meet every other month. They have a bylaws and a structure that they've had for 40 years. And I'm willing to follow anything this board wants to say, but they're very clear. What they want is they want notifications when we are going to discuss timely topics that apply to the South Bay, and they want an opportunity to weigh in before the board makes a decision. So that kind of sums it up. And maybe we can add some frosting to the cake, but anyway, I just wanted to sort of get that out there as kind of what's going on there. And thanks to Kathleen and Madeline, by the way. I won't take time to orient the new members. We did have some communication issues going on, and Kathleen and Madeline went to a great deal, and we're in a good place right now, but I just want to sort of ground everybody's expectations a little bit. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Alex, and then Margot, and then Madeline.
Do we get minutes, I guess is the right way to put it, of the meetings in the South Bay so we know what their interests are? I mean, you give us kind of an update, but maybe we should get a bit more information so we know kind of more in a linkage thing. If this is going to work,
I can
probably need to
minutes, but quite honestly, I'm sorry. Did you finish, Alex?
Yeah, I just said that. I just think we need to know them a little bit better. You know.
Well, I can share minutes, but I will tell you, the president changes once every year or 2 years. The presidents change every year, so the philosophy has changed back and forth. They're not particularly interested in advocacy. They don't even advocate at the county level. And that's just an issue. When a league gets interested in something, they go to the council, ask for permission to monitor the issue, and then report back. And of course, San Jose, since we're over half the population of the county, you know, we're usually the one asking for permission. So I'd be happy to bring the minutes, but I think you probably would be a little bit surprised how little is there that relates to us as a kind of League Bay area.
And I ditto, and they all meet every other month, and then they don't want to release their minutes till they've been approved. So what you're going to get is something that's like 3 or 4 months after they talked about it, and yet some of these things come up. So that was sort of stimulated my thought, if they have somebody, not the president, a liaison that would look at our agendas, that we send the agendas to, they look at the agendas, they have the opportunity to participate, and if they want, they participate. And it was really a simple thing, is to, well, I say simple because there could be somebody who's really hot to trot on some issue, and because Rena is coming up, that's going to be one of them. And but there could be something in transportation, and they see that the regional board's going to talk about it, and this way they just routinely get those agendas, and that's really what I was looking for, is something to not put all the onus on the Bay Area board to push out the information, but rather routinely put it out, and then have some of the onus be on the individuals to come forward.
Okay, Margot?
I'm talking about building allies, and to build allies and building relationships and trust. And that takes some time.
It surely does.
And,
you know, oh, go ahead, please.
And I'm willing to participate and go to the different league meetings and hear what they have to say, and so that they form that trust. So before you can begin to have a working relationship, you first have to have that in place. And that takes time. And I spent all year as chair of the membership committee going out and building relationships, you know, and we've more than quadrupled our membership in doing that. And it takes time to do it. But then when you need them, they're there. So,
that's a great success story.
Yeah. So I just think we need to think broader, and we need to be more open, and it's not about us telling them what we're doing. It's let's all share what we're doing.
Right. Vita, and then let's wrap this up.
And then I'd just like to circle back around that I have the respect for the council, but I want to go deeper into local leagues and have a representative come to our meetings together so that we can unite the South and the North Bay and stop keeping them separate. You know, we're Bay Area, and we have that sense of belonging for us to move forward together.
Indeed. Well, let's boot this whole topic and discussion forward. We'll have a little more time on the meeting on the 13th. And by the way, Margot, before you came, we agreed that we'll be meeting the second Mondays of each month, as we have been, and we'll do it at 10 o'clock in the morning, since we don't have to do a BART schedule consideration. So 10 o'clock, and we'll be meeting next on the 13th of this month.
All right, thank you.
Okay, let's get back to the agenda.
That's a good time. It's a cleaner time.
Okay,
you know,
10:45 was always kind of awkward. Yeah. Okay, now let's see. Yes, Alex. Observers of regional agency meetings, should they be accompanied by high school partners? And then a reminder that our core mission really is action, watching and commenting on regional agencies. This is another topic. We don't need to worry. We don't have another agenda item until 12:15, so we can spend at least that time. But this will also go forward, of course, as a continued discussion at a coming meeting. But Alex, if you would
you want me to say a little bit? Okay.
This.
One of the things we've tried to do, because we've had as most of you guys know, we've had a very successful run at registering high school students. And we've kept in touch with some of them, some of the leaders, because our focus switched from, or morphed, I guess, from just having adults lead these campaigns for voter registration to a partnership with the leaders in the high schools. And we've shifted more and more responsibility on them and gotten to know them a bit more. There's one gal that I met a couple of years ago. She went to NYU, and whenever I see her, we talk about sort of non-league matters, very political, very focused, but it's wonderful, because otherwise I never would have met her, I mean, in a million years, because she's my granddaughter's age. But this might be an opportunity, if we ever get back to normalcy or semi-normalcy. It might be a way, if you engage students, if you have another program within your league to engage students in voter registration, say, it might be another way to keep them interested in politics as policy rather than as an affirmation of one party or another. And I think really, for me personally, I think that's what's important, is to get them engaged and keep them engaged and seeing what's happening in our world, our little USA world anyway. Also many high schools, the other advantage for them, for the students, many high schools require community service hours. And this can definitely be one of the ways that they can accumulate community service hours. So I don't know if it's possible, but I just wanted to throw it out there because it may be in certain situations. I mean, they're just to observe city council meetings and school board meetings now, because they're going to be, locally, there are going to be some topsy-turvy meetings coming up because of all of the pandemic and the changes in routine and et cetera, and the changes in funding. So it's a great idea for kids for community service, but it's also a reality check for them to find out that the money that they thought was going to be there for education won't be. The money that they thought there would be there for addressing climate change or natural resources, it ain't going to be there anymore. It's going to have to come. I don't know where it's going to come from. And all of the things they take for granted, it'll be, as I say, I think, a reality check. And maybe there can be an adult in the room, a league member, who can help them look at it in a more neutral way and try to find solutions from their point of view, because it's their future. I mean, there are a lot of gray hairs on the screen now, and it's their future that we worry about. So anyway, that was my idea.
Okay. Further comment? Yes, Kathleen.
My question to that is, it's a great idea, but if we're talking regional meetings,
yes,
as opposed to local meetings, different dynamics, how would we identify the high school student to do that regional, shadow or come and do the regional meeting? That's very different. Or what you're saying is that we should put that recommendation out to all the local leagues to do, identify someone. So.
Well, I think you gather the students the same way. You grab them when they're interested in voter registration in some way. That's for me. And then you take someone from your local league and say, can you mentor this student? Can you observe? You don't even have to observe all the meetings, but can you observe, say, 3 meetings with this student and give them an idea of what this agency does? I don't think it has to be long-term unless it might work out that way. But I think you give them a little bite, a little, chocolate chip cookie or something, or a brownie, and say, try this, you might like it. But it's also another way for us to keep in touch with the younger generation is doing. I mean, we talk about reaching out, well, we're reaching out to people pretty much in our age group. But we have to think about the younger people too, I think.
We've been reaching out to the college. We've been tabling out to the community college every
Yeah.
week to train them to then go into the high schools to register kids to vote, and also to promote the community college that the first 2 years are free, because that message isn't getting out. So it's kind of a win-win for the college as well as for us reaching out to students and having diversified population. So the college students are diversified so that the students can more relate with them. And we have videos, you know, that we're using in the classrooms that the college students can use. So there's different things that the students can do, but if you want to bring them all together regionally, it's you pick a topic and a speaker. Like we have someone, a basketball star in mind who has started a foundation for Black Lives Matter. And we're reaching out to that person to help us to get the vote, to register youth to vote, because youth can respond, you know, and will come and want to meet and hear this famous athlete, you know. So you've got to have some little pizzazz in there to bring together. And they're ready. I mean, look, who's out there protesting now? Who's marching? It's students.
Yep. Yeah, we
And
had
if we don't grab on them now while it's hot, then we really lost the momentum that's right there facing us now.
Yeah, we had 2 marches in Fremont. The second march was led by a student, a former student, who hooked up with the league a few years ago, and she, her march, the big march was 600 people. Her march was 300. Peaceful march from one of our cities to another city, and I mean, it just gave me the chills when I read her email to the board asking for our help and advice, and I thought, okay, this is just one person that we've touched, and there may be many others, but it was wonderful. I mean, it really was wonderful,
isn't it?
It is.
Kathleen?
Oh, I don't dispute what you're all saying is right on. I just wanted to get into the weeds of it, in that observers of regional agency meetings, I don't see that high school, I think, to be very honest, I would love to be able to bring them, but I think they should be at the local, you know, the city council. But in terms of regional agency meetings, I will say this: Oakland League, what we're doing is we have brought in interns from Mills as well as Berkeley City College and others, and because we are looking at the issues, and the Mills School of Public Policy, they would love, in a sense, to come, you know, shadow and be part of those regional meetings, because these are the bigger issues that they're interested in. So it goes to what you were saying. There's, I think, certain levels, because you want to get that pizzazz, you want to get them, but trust me, some of those regional meetings could really, if you're not into those issues, you could just be not bored, but you could be, you know, put to sleep sometimes. However, as important as they are, but you do need, but I think reaching out to the variety of public policy schools or groups or whatever, the advocates would love to be, and then we could, you know, have some great interaction going. That's my thought.
We could lose these people in the weeds.
Yep,
Yes.
good.
Vita, you had something to say.
Kathleen said it all for me. So I do agree that this is a bigger picture, regional agencies. And so we should ask our local observer corps and the high school voter registration team to look at local partnerships, to look at city council, because no, those regional meetings are very boring and you could easily fall asleep.
There's a certain amount of sophistication too, I think, required for the type of issues that come up. Your local, I'm thinking Berkeley. always has something on the agenda that somebody can latch on to. So the local issues are just so much more meaningful, I think, to voters just generally, because there's 28 things that all have a direct impact on them as a citizen, and the regional gets a little more airy-fairy, let's say, in that we all know the importance of it, but you kind of have to have snuck up on it to really understand about regional approaches and so forth. So yeah, Roma.
I'll just share this real quickly. I'm monitoring a new Blue Ribbon committee that MTC forms, which ABAG, that's talking about reinventing transportation. At the last meeting, there must have been about 15 high school students from Santa Clara County that complained about how they were distributing CARES funding. And then they were distributing millions of dollars, and they didn't think they were doing enough to reduce vehicle miles traveled and climate. And I want to tell you, those folks just stood up and took notice. It was amazing. I just share that thought. Not that we want high school students out there representing and talking on behalf of the league, but I was astounded at how all these crusty, politicians kind of went back and went, whoa. Anyway.
Yeah, thank you. Madeline.
I just wanted to say two things. One of them is that students really, in the end, are very interested in participating in school boards, right? Because that's where they live and those decisions impact them. And there are many school boards that have student members, and the student members may, with voting privileges on the board. So there's always the, the process of looking to become that student member. And the people who are on the school boards, the student members on the school boards, have also been engaged now in changing the law or putting ballot measures on to reduce the voting age to 16. And it's on the ballot in Oakland now this is voting age only for school board. Right? San Francisco had it on and it didn't pass. But San Francisco did one where they got an opportunity for non-citizens to vote for school board. You don't have to be a citizen for parents to vote for school board. So in terms of voting issues, the big issue that people are now looking at are younger groups of very concerned younger citizens, is the opportunity for them to have a say. And that would be to be able to vote at 16 for school board members. And since it's been done in San Francisco, I know they're looking at it in West Contra Costa, but it's a very complicated thing because you have to, in San Francisco and Oakland, the city and county, the borders are the same. And in other places where you have a district that has multiple cities and the county, they have to go to each one to get them to agree to put it on. But that process brings a lot of people in who want to do it, right? And gives them the opportunity to do it, so that there are students looking at doing that right now. And that's definitely engaged a lot of young voter interest. So.
Indeed, and Berkeley does that as well. We've learned, though, tangentially, our league, that it really is, from the point of view of the Registrar of Voters, an absolute nightmare. An absolute nightmare, because these are, differently distributed. They have to do it by city, even worse if the school district goes over city lines. And so when you're thinking of these proposals and you're wondering how many people are really going to participate in the election, it's you can appreciate the headache of the ROV. Yeah. And how about if you're not a citizen? The San Francisco approach.
Well,
not even registered to vote.
Right. Well, what happened in San Francisco when they did it and it passed? Of course, the people who are not citizens really don't want a list of everybody who's not a citizen, so that they could then, you know, the list of who's allowed to vote because they're not a citizen. So it really was very, very almost not used at all, because they didn't know who wanted to put you, especially in this climate. I think when it was originally put on, it was a different era, but now the climate is not. They just believe it's going to be handed over to ICE, right? So it hasn't been used a lot.
Okay. Yes, Kathleen.
Just underlying question that we can establish at our next board meeting is who are the observers of the regional, you know, we need to establish who is observing the regional agencies.
Oh, yeah.
And then we can, and then what's the gaps, and then fill those.
Right. That's foundational, as the governor says. Have you been listening to his press conferences at noon? What a vocabulary. The man can just stream. I mean, just without notes, apparently. Oh, wow. Anyway.
Localism is determinative. Those are the three magic words of California.
She has been listening.
I have been fascinated by him. Just fascinated.
Truly. This is his moment.
He also listened to Cuomo right before him, and he's the opposite. He's the total opposite.
Yeah. Well, those opposite coasts, that'll do it for you.
Be careful there.
Okay, moving along, we're still on agenda here. And by the way, this, of course, again, is one of these ongoing discussions that we will be forever talking about, I think. Now, looking at voter service. Oh, this, yes. You can see here on the agenda what the issue is. And let me let Vita describe it to you, since it's Vita. And she has sent to you her ideas about voter service. She sent it in an email yesterday or today, and so you have a briefing from her of what her ideas are for voter service. And as you know, she's now doing communications, doing it very well. She's been doing it long enough that she wishes now to switch over to voter service. So take it away, Vita.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my goal that I make the switch from communications to voter service. I expanded the role of communications, and after 7 years, it's time for me to get some fresh blood in there. It's a huge job, and I know that we could split it, and every year it just keeps adding, things just keep adding onto it. And now we need to take a strategic look at communications and really create a bigger plan. But last year, one of the areas that I was successful in was creating an expanded communication outreach. So I reached out to all local leagues and tried to find out who their communications people were so that I could email them some of our big dates, you know, what we had going on. I could talk to them directly rather than it going to a president and to the communications director, to the IN person, to the communications director. So there seemed to be success in that. So as we look at voter service, this is a big year for us, and I know many of the local leagues wanted some greater connections. Many people, I work for a corporation in Oakland, and many people that I work with were interested in pros and cons, but live in all parts of the Bay Area. So having a clearinghouse for us to make that connection for local leagues is really a good opportunity for us. And as far as voter service, it's my wheelhouse. I work for the elections department as communications consultant. So I really proposed the idea for Bay Area Council 2 years ago to have that event at that beautiful location. And it was very successful. And our local leagues want more. And I think that I can help accommodate that if I were voter service chair. And we could sort of let the communications lie for a little bit and see what bubbles up. I mean, we'll still keep the website up, and I'm sure Madeline will help us with Facebook, and others I've sent the passwords for Twitter to any of our board members who want to pass their messages on and this is sort of flowing into communications, but I think it's important for you to see that there's a safety net in place, that anyone who wants to add a calendar event to our website can go directly to a third party, Talkify, add in the password and add their event. So it takes us out of the loop. And I'm hoping to do a little bit more of that, create autonomy and independence for our local leagues to add to communications, help with communications so that we can move on to this very important voter service, which is our, we're laser focused making democracy work. And that's what I'd like to work on now.
Well, thank you. That's the Reader's Digest condensed version. Trying and so well put, because this is a passion of Vita's. She would really like to shift over. We don't have a voter service portfolio assigned at the moment. We've got somebody who really wants to do it and has some excellent ideas for taking that over. So our dilemma is communications. Yes, Leslie.
I want to give credit to Vita, by the way, for being the inspiration behind that Bay Area League Council. And I want to call it Bay Area League Council because we already have a different Bay Area Council in the region. But the Bay Area League Council that she helped to organize and coordinate, because I got rave reviews from my local league members, and I think a lot of local leagues really appreciated that coordination. It was the inspiration for essentially making this position available on the Bay Area League Board, and looking for someone to fill it. And at the time that we were doing the nominating committee work, we were having a great deal of trouble finding a communications person, and we desperately knew we still needed Vita in that position. So that's why it is the way it is now. But Vita started it, and she did. I give her credit for pursuing it.
And thank you, all of yous. So this is our dilemma. We've got a ready to go voter service person. Roma, was that a hand up, or were you just wiping your brow?
No, it was a hand up.
Go ahead.
Well, we did spend time talking about priorities in the nominating committee, and I'll tell you just what. And I think I didn't talk directly with you, Vita, but I believe some others did about what would happen. And I'll just share my concern here. And it doesn't really have anything to do with voter service or anything else. It's just that building on conversations in the South Bay, and knowing that there are issues, regional issues coming forward, I'm just concerned about, Vita, your time allotment in the short term, not the long term, but the short term, and who's going to do the outreach to the local, like I said, to the local leagues that says, we're going to take action on this, we're going to do that. It's more the vehicle of how we communicate with them electronically, because that's really what they want. They want somebody blasting out information on them, giving them a heads up, being able to go to a website and find it. And it's kind of a critical need right now. So anyway, that's just what I'm struggling with, is who's going to do that? How are we going to do it? Who's got the time to do it? And I'm feeling a little bit of a sense of urgency about it, that we somehow get that nailed down a little bit to get us from now, at least through November. Thanks.
And communications and voter service go hand in hand. So it's kind of that same work. So if voter service information comes to communications person, the communication person sends it in an email, e-blast. So I think that the two sort of marry very well.
And what you're hinting is you have a left hand and a right hand. There could be a little passing through. I mean, the solution, because you're so good at those things, is to have you do it. And you are doing it. See, that's the deal. And the question is, can one person really handle both, especially in this high election season, is can she be asked to do that, or by default does she end up doing it because we can't find a communications person, try as we might? I understand from the immediate past and very excellent nominating committee that they turned over, every rock that was suggested to them and could not find a person who would volunteer to come on board and do this. And so here's Vita with her interests and strengths in two areas. And I think, don't you have a job too, Vita?
Oh yeah, there's work in there too. So if we could get this defined a little bit more, I only wanted to be as communications director for 4 years, and it's been a little bit longer, and we couldn't find anyone 2 years ago. And so it just takes us back to, what do leagues do if they can't find a president? So, what's that?
Job creep. Yeah.
Yeah.
You think you're in it for 2 years and they take you out with your boots on.
7 years later, I'm ready to go. And
no, I agree with Vita in terms of the way that the communications job can expand, especially with the addition of social media now. So I understand what she's looking at, because I had a hard time replacing myself on my local league board doing communications, and it had grown from just basically doing the voter and occasional emails to something that we now have an entire team working on. So I understand the complications. Kathleen's nodding her head. I know that Oakland has the same situation. So it's a big job. I also agree with her to a certain extent that a good part of what we're going to do is probably going to be, in terms of giving service to the local leagues, in terms of, what's happening that leagues may want to get communications about, that voter service may be a good chunk of it, at least in the next few months. But we're also going to want to get out the word about the working groups and some of the other things that we're starting to do. And I just don't know whether or not, if Vita moves into the voter service, I guess the communications is going to be what she's up to, and maybe some of us can figure out how to help with that.
Yeah.
As she said, she's setting things up so people can add stuff to the website. I know from my experience with the Milo platform that it is possible to train people and they can add their own stuff. So, just even doing the calendar things as a start. But if she's going to take on both, we really need to figure out ways where we can help her with both.
For sure.
And what I'd like to look at this is, Vita is voter service chair, and she's doing the communications work. And that's the piece that needs to be filled, not the voter service. So
Right.
that I separate myself from communications. And if we need a platform for our website that's a little more user-friendly, we can certainly do that as well. More people know Milo rather than, WordPress. If we need to go to Wix or something more simple, we can accommodate that. Or we could actually hire someone to do it. So at a very small amount of money, create internship. I mean, there's other opportunities for us to explore in future meetings.
Okay, and let's
Right.
do that too at a future meeting.
Okay.
And I'm going to bring you in just very briefly here. Would it be at all possible for the nominating committee to keep this as part of their agenda, to be looking for a communications person for us as a handoff from the last nominating committee? Would you be willing to think about that?
I would need to ask my other nominating committee people, but I'm going to say, sure, why not? And
That's the
but I need to
attitude.
ask them. But one of the big things that we started doing was to segment what we were talking, what is it that we were recruiting? And so I think to go back to the board, you guys, and say, is it a webmaster Is it a social media person? Is, what is it that you're interested in doing? And because there were people who were more interested, if I remember, and Leslie and Roma chime in because you were on the nominating committee too, is they might be okay with one piece of it. And so if you could put on the next agenda, though, and what is the slice that you're looking at? And is there somebody that needs to manage all those little pieces? Because if you were doing social media, it's possible that you don't need to be on the board, but you could be the ones that does the social media based on input from others. So if it could be on the agenda next time as to what specifically you want recruited and how you want it recruited, that dialogue, that'd be very helpful.
And it would be very helpful to use you as the channel for sure. Roma?
Yeah, just echo what Ann said. I think it would be very useful for the nominating committee to regroup, because we spent a lot of time, quite honestly, talking about priorities. And we determined communications was a higher priority simply because we were having so much difficulty with that spot. So I think we could have a very good conversation, maybe one Zoom meeting, and get our heads together and pull out some of the discussion we had about how to segment that, we could bring back and then have another board discussion that it might be really helpful. So
Right.
Thank you, Ann, for volunteering.
But I just want to say, I think the board, before the nominating committee meets, should really provide some dialogue on this so that it's more clear. Because that was a question that we had. Well, what is it that's needed? What is going to happen? So I think that's important. In Vida, you can, of course, take a lead there too, and not today, but in the future, next time's meetings agenda, to segment it out. Because I think people did some outreach to you is by saying, what are the chunks? Because there are some different skills that you would have if you were doing voters versus if you were doing the webmaster part.
Yeah,
I will let you know that I did prepare, sorry, Sherry, I did prepare an itemized list for Bonnie. And I don't think that we need a communications director. I think we need a communications team that do work for us. The communications director portfolio was created for me because of my expertise. So I think that's what we need to look at now, is not a communications director, is a communications team with all the components. And I'll find that email that I sent to Bonnie, which itemized the list of everything.
And that team may be part of what Madeline does as administrative vice president. I mean, I'm just making this up on the fly. Madeline, don't faint. Anyway, but they probably have some.
Don't quit, Madeline.
Yeah.
No.
Some director to the board, then there needs to be some board member that's responsible for that with the team. That's all I'm saying. But discussion next time.
Yeah, and I think that we should lay this out for another time because there's so many different venues.
Right.
I would say 5 minutes for council, Bay Area Council.
Kathleen, and then let's wrap this. Oh, Kathleen, and then Madeline.
Let's go back to what we're talking, what the initial item is. I think I would like to move that we do appoint or establish that VITA is voter services. That's one thing. And then the second part would be, which is a agenda item for the next, would be then to establish how we will resolve this communications issue, forming a team, doing all those process and that kind of thing. So that's my motion.
I second.
Okay, that's Vita seconding the motion by Kathleen.
That was
That's
Madeline
me.
seconding.
I'm sorry, what?
I second it.
Madeline.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're just below Vita on my gallery. Got it. Okay, and Marianne, I see her busily scratching the fact that there's been a motion. After I promised her there probably wouldn't be any voting. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Do you want to repeat your motion, Kathleen?
I move that we establish Vida Flores as our voter services. Is it chair or is it director or?
Director, I think.
Director, and establish at our next meeting the parameters for fulfilling the communications gap, team, etc.
Okay. All right, is that clear to everyone? All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. And those opposed? Okay, one. And abstaining? Okay, the motion passes. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now,
And
can I
that's
take the picture? Can we smile so I can take
Are you
it?
going to take the picture now? Okay.
Yeah, for communication.
Wait a minute. Let me get my button here.
Okay, smile, everyone. Screenshot coming. 1, 2, 3. Look at the camera. Thank you.
Done?
Yes, we're good.
Okay. Eric, did you want to say something?
No, not at all.
Okay. Your screen your screen flashes every once in a while.
Yeah.
So. Okay. All right.
Wise man.
Just wanted to remind people that the Bay Area Council will be coming up that we have to plan for April, May of 2011. We're now in the year for
Again,
that.
Sherry, it's Bay Area League Council.
Right.
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Right, because the Bay Area
Add
Council is a
that.
totally different group.
That's an unfortunate nomenclature, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We just add league, it takes care of it.
Right. Got it. And council is like convention, only it's not.
Right.
We do it in the alternate years, but it's just to get some business done.
Yeah, and now that we have a 2-year budget, we really don't have business that we have to accomplish at council, which is one reason we were able to do that wonderful voter service council a year and a half ago.
I see. So we can devote council then to, oh heavens,
Right.
education, information,
Right.
rather than any business component of it. Cool. Okay. So we will get serious about that starting with the next loaded board meeting. It's coming right up. Remember, 13th of this month. Okay. And now moving along to the action plan. Again, that's something that we can devote that board meeting to putting together a tentative calendar of dates and tasks that we need to accomplish during this coming board year. We are now calling them working groups, and we've got to start planning League Day very soon because it's a biggie, as you all know who have planned and attended it. Yes, Leslie.
Can I suggest that we, at this year, when we do League Day, let's look at a topic where we can also pull together a committee that isn't just the board.
Oh, what a cool notion. Yeah. These now newly named working groups perhaps can participate in that. Yeah, Vita.
Are we recommending topics? I like the topic of policing for this year's, for the
Leasing, did you say?
Policing.
Policing.
Oh, sorry, what?
Leasing apartments.
Something to do with housing, right? Okay.
Policing
Okay.
practices.
Oh my God, you really want to bite it off, don't you?
It's a hot topic right now.
Well, it certainly is. I'm wondering, you know, we would have to discuss what we bring to it that isn't already being pounded there. Yes, Anne.
If we're throwing topics on the table, something that Margot was talking about was how she did outreach into the community. It's an extension of, and quadrupled her membership, those strategies for DEI. We meeting a few years ago, and now many leagues have done a lot of very exciting things. And this could be something where different leagues could talk about what they did. Just an idea to throw it out, because I think it's going to be an ongoing topic, which is
Or make Margot chair.
Along with that, I think it goes along with what Kathleen was saying about having 3 events, that this could be an event and people could report out what they are doing in that. And,
Definitely,
now's the
very,
time to
very
do it.
leaguish.
And now's the time to do it. What? Sherry?
Yes, Roma.
Just sort of as a subset of that, a conversation we're having in San Jose is how do you operationalize equity? So, I mean, it might be kind of a very rich program to kind of fold all that in with. Anyway, it's a great idea.
Operationalize? You're
Yes,
sounding
that's
like
the
the
favorite
governor.
word now, operational.
I know. That's exactly what
I hate it, but I'm living with it.
Okay. I really like that, effectuating the DEI, because I mean that's league, that's important to league per se, you know, of it. That's, and yes, Leslie.
I'm a little mixed here in terms of which of these 2 events we're talking about when. Council is more internal for our local leagues, and League Day is more external for beyond the league and bringing people into what we're doing. So I see the DEI as the internal sharing and networking aspect of it, and the policing thing that Vita suggested as being more traditional League Day topic, but I'm not sure whether that's the way those suggestions were meant. So I'm just asking people to kind of clarify, when they suggest a topic, which of those 2 events are you thinking of it to fit in with?
Well, that's a good thing. I also think that to get people, league people involved, even though it's externally oriented, it should be coming from our work groups, you know, forward. So if housing is something that people are really working on, then there could be something there.
And the
Transportation, the same way.
equity could be all of those groups or a number of those groups.
And so,
yeah.
And how do we get our, you know, using our working groups, how do we enrich that in terms of a Bay Area League Day is sort of the big idea over here in Menlo Park.
That comes back to my original point. Let's take those topics that everyone is focusing on, the main objectives like the first 3, and bring people together to share information. It can be ongoing. It doesn't have to be a one-time, it shouldn't be a one-time event.
Yeah,
But-
Mary Ann.
Excuse me, I'm new to the game. What's DEI?
Oh, yeah. Who wants to take that?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah.
Again?
Diversity, equity,
Equity
and inclusion. Yes.
And now they talk about diversity, equity, and belonging is the new term. We belong together.
Oh my. This is beginning to take on those aspects of.
I've also heard it. I put it in the chat. I've also heard expansion. Just the feeling that, you know, if you're doing inclusion, it feels like maybe whoever was included wasn't fully integrated. Whereas I like belonging better than expansion, because it does imply not just that you're growing the group, but that people actually, all of them belong there.
We are one.
Right.
I would like to propose that we have operationalizing equity as our council topic. In 2019, we didn't have any business, but we created a whole event around voter service. Why don't we create that event around operationalizing equity and talk about what our local leagues are doing, having that conversation, and then policing for League Day.
Great.
So ponder that. Okay, well, other things will crop up just because we're discussing them, and this is quite the discussion group, I think.
And for me, creating a topic is not important as choosing a date. This is the biggest thing. If we can choose the date as soon as possible, that will make our work much easier.
It is for sure. I'm thinking, let's see, what comes first? Is it council or league day that would come first?
League Day.
League day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, okay. And
Yeah, this
that-
plays into the calendaring that we can do at the next meeting. But yes, League Day will be early spring and council comes late spring.
Right. So, gee, you do wonder about the odds of reality location, or whether location is irrelevant for that. But we do probably need to nail down a location as if, and work from there. It's easier to cancel than it is to establish for some, unless they're not taking reservations yet. But we can discuss all of that on the 13th. Okay. Look at this. Is there any other topic or extension of a topic that you'd like to pursue before we adjourn? Oh, look at that. Oh, yeah, Alex.
Yes. In the back of my mind when we're talking about all of these topics is obviously the election coming up. But the other thing that's been worrying me as far as transportation goes is money, funding. And we don't really know what kind of shape the economy is going to be in. It may just fall through the rabbit hole. I don't know. And then there's also the very important ballot measure, schools and communities first, and how that might affect our economy, our state economy, and our regional economy. So I kind of want to put that in the back of your mind of paying attention to the financials, what's going to happen in our state, in our region, and in our local communities, because we may be in really bad shape financially. So that may change the tenor of what we're going to do in the future. We may have to really pay more attention to stuff, practical stuff like that. I hope not, but I would say it's within the realm of possibility.
Kathleen and then Roma.
I think Roma was ahead of me.
Okay.
Oh, well, maybe we were along the same lines. Alex, that is so important. If you go back and check out the Blue Ribbon Committee that was formed, the last report, there are graphs and they're talking about how these transportation agencies are going to literally fall off a cliff. And it is, it's terrifying. In Santa Clara County, our Valley Transportation Authority director spoke against the allocation because she said it was the distribution of cares because it was too optimistic. OMG. I mean, thank you, Alex, for mentioning that.
Kathleen.
Well, to follow up with that, I think at our board meeting, I think we should establish how and what our political agenda is going to be for as the Bay Area League. What are we going to be telling everyone that we are supporting, or promoting or doing whatever. And what's that? You know, because there is legislation out there that is really it fills all of our league issues and it goes to our priority issues. And so are we going to take on that role to make sure that our leagues know what those are and know what the agenda is, and or take a more active role in submitting our letters or whatever? I'm just saying, I think we need to determine what our role is going to be in this whole political agenda moving forward. Goes back to voter services.
It's all connected.
Ain't it the truth? Yeah. Is there anything else for the good of the order, as Madeline calls it? She didn't originate that.
No.
Okay, all right. In that case, we stand adjourned until the 13th at 10 a.m. and when we will meet you all by Zoom. Thanks again.
Thank you,
Can
everybody.
I ask a quick question?
Yeah, sure.
This is off topic. This has nothing to do with us, but who is in the Oakland League that's sitting here right now? Okay, Kathleen, I need to have a side conversation with you about somebody that's a potential new member that just moved to Oakland. Okay.
May I also say, Roma, you and I have to talk offline about our focus groups.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. We do. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye. Madeline, can you stay on?
Vita's got her hand up for you.
Oh, Vita, you had something?
Just for the good of the order, I'd like to add our new members, Eric and Margot, onto our website. So if you could send me a photo of yourself, that would be terrific. You can go, I have placeholders for other league members and Marianne as well. I'll need your photo to add. So you can go on our website and look at league leaders and see what we have.
The last
Any
time
others who don't have a photo, feel free to send your photo.
The last time I took a photo was when I turned 60, and it was to be for my obituary in the future.
Oh my God. Boy, is that thinking.
And someone asked me for a picture for a newspaper article, and I showed them that, and they go, well, like, when was this taken, Margot? Because I'm 76 now.
That's a good primo age. That was the class of 42, right? Okay. All right. Anything else? All right. Y'all can go. Oh, look at that cattail that just walked across Leslie. Okay.
She's my star. Roma knows. She comes and drapes herself around my shoulder.
Love that cat.
Okay. All right. Madeline.
Bye-bye.
Stay on.
Bye.
Happy 4th of July, everyone.
Happy you all. Yeah. Such as it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Such as it is.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And then there were two.
And then there were two. Well, I think that went splendidly.
It did. It did. I'm going to turn off the recording now. We can stop recording. Let me do that.
And